My name is Githuku, and I'm the representative for UN Women's multi-country office. I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you today, but I want to say that Women Mastery is really such an exciting journey. Thank you, Lebo, for this opportunity. Let me tell you a little bit about UN Women. The work that we do is really to put an end to gender inequality across the world. By 2030, we expect to have gender equality's expiration date. 25 years ago, women gathered in Beijing to talk about what it would take to see a time when all of us would experience gender equality. 25 years later, we look back, and what we find is that we've made progress, great progress in some areas. Education for girls has increased significantly. Discriminatory laws are much, much better, and we're nearly at about 80% across the world. But yet in other areas we stand in place. Violence against women continues to be the single largest problem that we have. During COVID-19, the pandemic escalated everywhere in the world. Intimate partner violence sees over 243 million women violated in the comfort of their homes. What an irony. The other area that we work in is on women's economic empowerment. Women who are in the informal sector, women domestic workers, women who run their own businesses, women farmers, women in all kinds of labor, to make sure that they have the protection that's needed, but also the opportunity that they deserve. Many of our countries don't share equally to ensure that women can access economic opportunity. So this is an area that we drive significantly. In fact, it is so important because unless we do this, the vulnerability to gender-based violence, to infections of HIV, especially amongst young women and girls, is propelled more because of their economic vulnerability. In terms of violence against women, in this country, we have many policies that are in place to make sure that women and girls have the kind of services that are required. But we see a culture of normalization, of bystanderism, where we watch as people are violated and make it somebody else's business. Or we have the police who sometimes, in some instances, repeat the violence. So we have women who go to police stations and they're sent home because it's a domestic matter. We have all kinds of challenges where the issue of rape has become so normalized. In one of our communities in Deep Slope recently, a study showed that 62% of the men confirm that they have raped at least one woman or one girl in that year. This is completely unacceptable. But we also have evidence that it is possible to reverse this. A study by the Medical Research Council on what works to end violence against women and girls points to two main solutions that need to be done to be able to stop this scourge. The first one is about focusing on men, focusing on the toxicity that drives the culture of rape and the culture of violence. By working with men and educating them really about what it takes to change their behavior, how it is that their patriarchal views are actually toxic and drive violence, and that violence is not acceptable behavior. And working with them diligently over days, over months, over weeks, over years, to change that behavior provides real solutions. At UN Women, we have a He for She program where we work with men in taverns, men in stockfields, men in different communities to change their behavior. This week, the Men's Parliament has been having conversations about exactly this point. What does it take if men everywhere in running institutions take responsibility? Violence and harassment is not okay in the workplace. But for survivors, how do we make sure that every single survivor has a fighting chance? So one of the things that came out of this Medical Research Council is that it is important to create economic opportunities for women and girls so that they can actually make the choices about whether to stay in a relationship that's violent or not. And so in focusing on that, one of the big areas that we have been supporting is really looking at how to help women and girls to access more and more opportunities. Right now, as part of the Generation Equality campaign that UN Women has launched globally, we are going to take extraordinary action in partnership with governments, with the private sector, with civil society, to create the change and the future that we want to see. One of those areas that South Africa is driving is on economic justice. And on economic justice, it's about making sure that every woman who has a kiosk, or who has a small business, or who is working in a township is able to actually get the kind of economic opportunity that she deserves. We are driving a campaign of preferential procurement. The president has announced 40% of every purchase of goods and services by the public sector at the district level, at the national level, at the provincial level must be driven towards women. 40% of that has to go to women and girls. And so as part of this work, in addition to the victim empowerment programs that support women survivors, our strategy is to make sure that those women themselves are actually receiving the kind of economic opportunity that they require. I want to congratulate you for this opportunity to have this conversation, particularly with survivors of violence. And I know it's still a long way ahead, but we also know that by mobilizing our collective voice, by coming together to develop strategies, by partnering between us as the UN Women and you as an NGO, that we really can turn the tide on this horrendous pandemic that is the second pandemic coined by the president across the world. We thank you and I congratulate you, and I pray that you really have an exciting, exciting summit today. Thank you. Greetings.